Hello, everyone. We'll get started in just a minute. All right, why don't we get started? We have a good group. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jillian Gilchrist, State Representative from West Hartford and Chair of the Endometriosis Working Group. So glad to see you all. We're going to start as we always do by going around and doing introductions. Do want to let folks know we are on CTN today, so we're being recorded. And I'm just going to call on the boxes as I see them. So I'm going to start with Marge.
Hi, good afternoon, March 1st from Cape Cod. Just checking in.
Good to see you. Jasmina.
Hi everyone, my name is Yasmina Kulancic. I'm the Endorise Program Manager and I work at the Jackson Laboratory. Nice to be here.
Nice to see you. Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole Natar. I'm an endometriosis patient and started a women's health organization, nonprofit organization to help women afford excision surgery. And just started under the Women's Health Advocates Group, which is a lobbyist group for women dedicated to women's health, an endometriosis and adenomyosis coalition, to trying to change policies so that my nonprofit doesn't have to do this anymore.
Wonderful. And we're looking forward to your presentation. Thank you. Cassidy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Casey. I am the Clinical Research Coordinator for Endorise, and I work at UConn Health.
Wonderful. Caroline.
Hi, everyone. I'm Caroline. I'm a postdoctoral associate at the Jackson Laboratory. I work under Dr. Elise Courtois, and I study the underlying biology of endometriosis.
Wonderful. Jenny.
Hey everybody, my name is Jenny Cole. I'm the project manager for the Menstrual Equity Grant at the Diaper Bank of Connecticut, or also the Connecticut chapter of the Alliance for Period Supplies.
Wonderful. Arlie.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Arlie. I'm a patient advocate and health coach for those with endometriosis, and as always, happy to be here.
Well, Dr. Luciano.
Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle Luciano. I'm a MIG surgeon, a minimally invasive GYN surgeon or endometriosis surgeon over at UConn Health, and also the co-director for the Endorise.
Wonderful. Holly.
Hi, I'm Holly Dandurand. I'm with Extra Pelvic Not Rare. We're headquartered in Washington, but have chapters in Connecticut and California.
Great. Janet.
Good afternoon, Janet Alfano, CEO of the Diaper Bank of Connecticut and the Connecticut chapter for the Alliance for Period Supplies.
Great. Bridget.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bridget Aliaga. I am a behavioral health program manager for Demas Women's Services.
Wonderful. Dr. Courtois.
Hello, everyone. I'm Elise Courtois. I'm a biologist, molecular biologist. I lead a lab that does single cell and different type of technologies and study endometriosis at the Jackson Lab. And I'm also co-leading the Endorise program with Dr. Luciano.
Great. Brian.
Good afternoon. I'm Brian Kenoyer, Director of Government Relations at the Connecticut Hospital Association.
Wonderful. Sam.
Hi, I'm Samantha. I am a nurse and a nurse educator and a patient with endo on both pelvic and thoracic.
Great. Michelle.
Hi, everyone. Michelle Snyder. I'm with Aspira Women's Health, and I'm over commercialization and innovation. And we're in the process of developing a blood test for the risk of endometriosis.
Great. Lisa.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Roy. I'm Director of Government and Community Relations for the Jackson Laboratory. I work closely with Endorise.
Wonderful. Georgie.
Hi, I'm Georgie Kovacs, and I run FemPower Health. And for purposes of this group, I have an endometriosis coalition that I've put together, which I mentioned on one of these last calls, and I'm in initial stages. So if anyone wanted to learn about it, please send me a message. I'm actually talking to the World Endo Society tomorrow because they're very interested as well. So I'm really excited to be on this call.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here. Wendy.
Good morning, everybody. Congratulations first to Jillian for her next step forward, running for House of Representatives at the U.S. level. So my name is Wendy Bingham, and I am the Executive Director for Extra Pelvic Not Rare. I am a physical therapist and a longstanding person with endometriosis.
Thanks for being here. Kara. Oh, I caught you off guard. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, Cara Andrioli. I'm a registered dietitian in Glastonbury, working with mostly women, women's health issues. And I put together a guide on nutrition for women with endometriosis. I had a wonderful intern this summer, and we worked on that together. So I have put together a guide, and it really basically talks about using food to empower women because it's something that we can do every day to help ourselves. And it really centers on the anti-inflammatory effects of wonderful food. And it talks about relieving some symptoms, GI symptoms, using food and journaling for that. So that's something that I want to make available to all of the stakeholders, because I think that that's something that really doesn't get talked about a lot, is the fact that we can use food to protect our immune system and tamp down the inflammation that I guess really seems to kind of get things started with endometriosis.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Hi, everyone. Liz Gustafson. My pronouns are she, hers, and I am the Connecticut State Director with Reproductive Equity Now.
Wonderful. Representative Kennedy.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I apologize for not having my camera on. It's great to see everybody, or I can see everybody, and always eager to see what our next steps are with this wonderful, wonderful working group. Thank you to our chairwoman, Gilchrist. So thank you.
Elena.
Hi, everybody. My name's Elena Curry. I am a nurse anesthetist now at Winchester Hospital in Massachusetts. I've taken the summer off, so I'm waiting to be inspired for my next endometriosis thing, whether it's advocacy or participating in studies or whatever. So I'm back.
Great. Jamila.
Are we on? Oh yeah. Hi everybody. Sorry. My name is Jamela McFarlane. I am a patient advocate as well as I work with Endo Black, the nonprofit organization doing program training specialist as there. Very excited to be here and thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Brianne.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brianne. I'm the clerk to the Human Services Committee and the aide to Representative Gilchrist.
Thank you. Rep Nuccio. Oh. All right, I'll move on.
Was that me, Jillian?
Yes, yes. Sorry about
Sorry. Yep, Rep Nuccio, just here, to hear where we are, what's the status and that and moving forward. Thank you.
Wonderful. Liz Powell.
Hi, good to see you. Oh, my thing is messed up. Hey,
So I think I was on from the very beginning, and I've been off for a little bit, but back on again. So we run G2G Consulting lobbying firm in Washington, and introduced you to Aspira and some of the great things over the years. But we now have launched Women's Health Advocates, which is this amazing advocacy organization, all 50 states, many countries, lobbying for women's health broadly. And we have a really active endometriosis committee. Nicole is one of our leaders. So wanted to dial in and just see how we can collaborate. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Laura.
Hi, everybody. My name is Laura Weisman. I am a patient that has endometriosis for the past over a decade. Had excision surgery a couple years ago, so I'm just here to see what the new news is and the up-to-date research. And I'm also a patient advocate.
Wonderful. Thank you. iPad 74.
Hi, I'm Beth Ludwig. I'm an endo mom, and just congratulations, Jillian. I'm rooting for you and voting for you, and I wish you all the best. I'm so excited for you. So I am advocating for my daughter, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good to see everyone. I'm going to take a moment just to give space for anyone who wants to share about their endometriosis experience.
I'll go first if nobody wants to go yet.
Sure.
I've had endometriosis as long as I could, or I've had symptoms for as long as I could verbalize symptoms. So especially now knowing that endo is a full body disease, I've had gastro issues since I was 8 or 9 years old. Then from my first period at like 11. So I went down the full journey of trying to get similar to every other woman with endo, being gaslit into being told that it's mental health and it's anxiety or it's depression, since all the scans came up as normal. And then I eventually hit a breaking point around 26 years old where I'm like, I drained my 401k and found an excision specialist. And if I had to do it again, I would do it because it still provided enough relief. But still, the endo has grown back. That was 2.5 years ago. And we need a cure. We need more research. We need that excision surgery to be accessible without having to drain your 401k or take out loans or get into an enormous amount of credit card debt. So that's what I'm doing here, is trying to change the system, and try to get more women like myself and other women on this call accessible healthcare at a price that we can afford.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing and for using your experience to help others. Yes, Marge. With the real hand.
I just like to mention that I'm one of the senior members available here. I really had, I just turned 90. I've had I've had endometriosis for about 75 years. I've had hot flashes since I had my hysterectomy at 25. Therefore, have 65 years of hot flashes. It's kind of crazy, and I'm only here because I want to see this business straightened out and somebody working on it finally. I just can't believe it. When we came to COVID, and I found out that after 65 years, nothing had been done to further investigate endometriosis, which I'd had for a really long time by then. So I just want to be part of it when it's all over.
Thank you, Marge, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
That's a big one.
Yeah, it was.
All right, we're going to move into the agenda, and we have a presentation on advocacy work being done at the federal level on an ADA amendment, FMLA expansion, and educational access. So I'm going to turn it over to our guests to present on their work.
Thank you. So yeah, the first thing that we're working on, there's two things that we're working on right now. So under the Women's Health Advocates with Liz Powell here, we started the Endo Coalition, and we have a few different critical initiatives. The first one being, like Jillian mentioned, recognizing endo and adenomyosis under ADA and FMLA. So we're advocating for both of those conditions to be added to ADA and FMLA to ensure that accommodations are available, especially for students and workers. So on the school end, we're emphasizing how frequent absences due to pain can derail academic process, and then the long-term success for young girls. And then in the workplace, we're highlighting the economic impact of missed work days and the lack of appropriate accommodations. And then the second thing we're working on is the CMS and reimbursement reform. So we're also writing letters to CMS requesting policy changes to support our proper reimbursement for excision. Because right now, long story short, both ablation and excision, the two ways to treat endometriosis, are both covered under the same CPT code, even though excision is a far more complex and effective procedure. The ablation is like a 45 minutes to an hour, and excision on average is 6 to 8 hours. So the CMS reimbursement rates need to be way different. And that is the reason why these excision specialists, who often have to complete like a 2 and 2.5 year, I don't know the exact time frame, but around there, of additional fellowship training beyond OB-GYN, to learn how to do excision and then solely focus on that because it's so complex. So the reimbursement rates are just so low for that code that exists right now that those excision specialists, it forces them out of network. And then that puts the financial burden back on us patients. So this is what we're trying to change, and we need CMS to help do that. But hand in hand, trying to get endo and adenomyosis under ADA and FMLA. And the one thing that I would like to ask everybody here today, just perspective on, is because endometriosis is so difficult to actually diagnose in terms of the policy side, how to write the language so that it's suspected endometriosis, or like just how to write that, since it takes so many years and you can struggle with it as a child and not get the accommodations that you need in school, but then it takes 15 years, you might not get an actual diagnosis, so like surgical confirmation, until you're maybe 30. So how to write that, since you're not actually going to have an endometriosis diagnosis or adenomyosis diagnosis when you're a child, but you might have suspected and all the symptoms that align with it.
So Nicole, I've had to fill out sometimes some of these things for kids for school, and college especially. And again, it's people that haven't had the surgery, or are scheduled for surgery. And one of the things that I use is, I say things like suspected endometriosis based on clinical exam history and imaging, so that, it kind of doesn't sound like I'm just, making it up so that they don't have to go to school. So I think, I think that would be the way to present it. And I say, this patient has endometriosis, which causes chronic pain, and makes it and flares such that sometimes they cannot go to school, or they need accommodations for their testing or whatever the thing is that they're asking for. And I suspect that they have endometriosis based on clinical history, physical exam, and imaging is usually how I say it. But you're right. I mean, it unfortunately it does take that extra training, right, to even suspect it, let alone to treat it and excise it. So I think part of it is also going to be teaching these pediatricians and primary care doctors to see that, so that these patients can go and see an endometriosis specialist, because it's a lot easier for me to get FMLA covered than a pediatrician to get it covered, right? Because I can even say in my note, if symptoms do not improve with medical management, our next step would be to consider surgery, but we're hoping to see improvement with medical management such that she will be able to go to school or whatever. So I do think it's kind of two things, right? It's getting them into somebody that recognizes it's endo, and then someone that the FMLA people will listen to, or the disability people will listen to.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's definitely the goal. And thank you for that language, especially the clinical history and just being able to include that. The other part with ADA and FMLA that we're trying to focus on, especially in the workplace, is collecting all these statistics around the economic impact of women being out of the workplace, and just like simple solutions on, obviously it's different for each type of job, but kind of positioning, because the first thing that people are going to come back and say is like women are just going to be using this as an excuse to get out of work, or we still need reliable workers. But there has to be for each job different types of accommodations within reason for the employers. So that's what we're working on putting together now, and just really focusing on the economic impact, since that's, I'm assuming, what's going to get everybody's attention on the policymaker side.
What kind of accommodations are you asking for?
For school or workplace?
Work, like for work.
Depending on the job, specifically around like just being able to come in late if needed, and not be penalized for it. Obviously not every day, but within reason. Say somebody with endometriosis only gets flare-ups on their period and they can expect when that's going to be happening. Maybe to work if they have a job where they're scheduled in to work around the time when they're usually flaring, if there's an honest communication between the employer and the employee, to be scheduled around when they're typically not flaring up, or to avoid those instances, especially now with everybody, with all the coming back into the workplace and the mandations to not be able to work from home anymore, to have that option if you're experiencing a flare up. If you're on your feet all day, to be able to have rest breaks or access to a private rest area, access to restrooms, especially with all the gastro impacts that could happen with women with endometriosis and pain. Um, Different like availability to have access to like a heating pad, or to be able to heat up that heating pad, seating. Like I said, if you're on your feet all day, reduce travel demands during flare-ups, time off for surgery or specialist appointments. Um, those are the ones that we're kind of circulating around right now. Do you think though, like from your experience, your perspective, do you think those would make sense, or if any of those would be immediately fought back on?
Well, I honestly, like, I think being able to come in late and all that is not going to go over well, especially when you think about, we just did the sick leave bill where you don't have to give notice. You can just call in sick or leave a job, like all of that. So I think saying additionally on top of that, you can also want to come in late because of endometriosis. I think that's kind of covered underneath the sick law that we already have. So I don't know that we really need to layer that on top of it. I just want to make sure that we're not putting more onerous demands, like you said, like on businesses above what we already have.
That so it's the earned sick leave law?
The 40-hour a week, you have to give the sick leave and all that. You don't have to have notice, right? You can just call in and say, I'm taking 2 hours this morning with your paid sick time already. So I don't think we need to necessarily spike out endometriosis as its own on top
Yeah.
of that. When I have my period, I'm going to come in 2 hours late every day
Yeah.
or whatever. I think we just have to be careful that we're not creating more regulations on top of business, on top of, like, a lot of them I'm hearing a lot from the small businesses, especially. They're having a hard time administering in maintaining the workforce with the paid law, the paid sick leave that we already have. So I would just want to be careful about that, like access to the bathroom and everything. Breaks, I'm assuming you're going above the regular 15 minutes every 4 hours, stuff like that. Like I would just want to understand exactly what they are before we go forward with trying to legislate it.
Okay. No, thank you for that. I'll definitely take a look at the other law and kind of compare them back and forth. And then on the school front, in terms of the recommended school accommodations that we're talking about right now, is just flexible attendance policy, unlimited restroom or health office access, extended time on assignments or exams, an adjustable workload during flares, modified physical education, use of comfort aids, so to be able to have a heating pad or ice pack, whatever may be helping the patient during that time, access to rest area, designated quiet space, especially if the nurse's office is more of like a larger kind of open area. and then school-based counseling support just to deal with the mental effects of all that. From experience, I did receive some of these accommodations in high school, but none of them were around endometriosis. They were all around anxiety and depression, which was not the issue at hand. So I feel like it's important to have something where there's accommodation specifically around endo, or I don't know, like the physical, acknowledging the physical component. So you're at least acknowledging what the patient's really going through.
Wonderful. Let me go to Laura and then Wendy.
Just to add a point for I don't know how much you're pushing it, but I'm just thinking back when I used to work in the workforce, and now I've been working from home since the pandemic. And I can tell you, I don't know how I could ever go back to an office because I have to sit in the tub sometimes. So like I can't do that obviously in an office. So I think pushing the narrative of a hybrid schedule for those of us who have endo or remote work needs to be an option, because I feel like at least if that's just an option, I still can get work done, and it's maybe could be a little bit of an alternative instead of saying like, oh, I'm coming in late or I have to leave, because it helps me so much to be able to navigate how many doctor's appointments I have and still be able to get work done while I'm at home. And then I think you might have mentioned it, but for school, like I remember like getting in trouble for not being able to do certain things when it came to like gym class. Like, oh, some of these physical testing, and I'd be like dying, and then they would be like, well, if you don't do it today, you have a 0 or whatever. So I think some of those things should be allowed to be excused from doing those types of testing, and like, I don't know, retest the next week or whatever it is. I think that would be really helpful.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy?
All right, thank you. Nicole, I have a question. Maybe you guys can clarify this with me. So you mentioned that with endometriosis, a lot of the smaller companies can't cover the sick leave. And is there any way within the national conversation that we can get some kind of coverage for people that we know that you're going to run out of sick leave? And that women tend to, or any menstruators tend to use their time off work. They use all their vacation time up. And is there something we can work on legislative that would recognize endo as that disability and somehow tap into cover people so that they're not hitting that gap? They're running out of sick leave. They're using up all their vacation time. That there's still some kind of like a backup that's not put onto the employer to cover some kind of expenses for them. Because I've seen people who become homeless from this disease because they've run out of options. So I don't know if somebody can explain that to me. Maybe I'm asking the multi-million-dollar question here of how you could write something up legislative and whether that would even be considered.
Liz, would you
Just
be able to
somehow.
take that one?
I'm sorry?
I was just asking Liz if she's still on, if she's able to speak to that question.
Me?
No, there's another Liz.
Oh, sorry, it's Powell. I didn't realize there were two. Sorry.
Sorry, what's the question? I'm so sorry.
So we have obviously people who are employers, and you have individuals that end up using up all of their sick leave. They use up all their vacation pay. Some people have the short-term disability coverage, but they run out of funding, and we're putting it onto the employer. No, I can't give them extra sick time. Is there some way we can work out acknowledging endometriosis as a disability and somehow getting coverage? Whether it's the government helping to support that gap so that individual, some of these individuals, they run out of coverage and they end up homeless because they miss so much work.
Yeah, that's honestly, that sounds like, I don't think that's something we can put in this bill. We're trying to write a bill that's feasible, that will actually pass, and which means it has to be relatively, frankly, lame. It can't do a ton and it can't cost anything. Right? I mean, that's just the government that we have right now. It's all screwy.
Yeah.
So, but I'll tell you something. I learned about a woman who wanted to, you're going to think this is like over here, but it's actually very related. She wanted to attack the problem of fertility coverage. And so instead of going to health insurance, she went to life insurance, and she created a policy that people can now buy. I think it's brilliant, What if we could do that with endometriosis and like expand it to these other chronic conditions where you get life insurance, because the whole health insurance, that's a whole nother
Yeah.
mess, right? But life insurance, I think that's kind of a creative thing. It could be, and then if it catches, employers would then buy this additional offering for people, buy in at a low rate, and then you can manage it when when you need it. So anyway, it's just a thought.
So I have
thank you. That's
another quick,
great.
Yeah.
I have another quick question on that. Isn't this like, just listening to all this, isn't this already covered under our Family Medical Leave Act? If you have a medical diagnosis in Connecticut, you've got, I think it's the 12 weeks paid FMLA, and you can take that in half-day increments. Like it's not, you can take it for doctor's appointments. You can take it for, like I just hear a lot of things that I think we already have in place, right? We have the paid sick leave for small businesses now, the mandatory 40 hours with, you can call in and say, I'm going to be 2 hours late, I'm taking my sick leave, right? We also have paid Family Leave Act, which with a medical diagnosis, you can take paid family medical leave. So I think some of these things we already have in the state, unless I'm mistaken. Jillian, would
So
you
this-
agree? Like, I think a lot of this is already kind of covered.
Yes, so today's presentation is about their federal initiatives.
Oh,
So, yeah, to your
yeah. So yeah, we can't do anything about that. Yeah.
we can well, the point of today is to hear what's going on and see if there's any areas where we have gaps. To your point, we had a conversation last spring in this group, and we did figure out that yes, in Connecticut, our paid family and medical leave does cover this. To what Dr. Luciano explained earlier, you will need, right, like a medical provider who understands and
Medical
can do the
documentation.
appropriate
Yeah.
documentation. And then to your point, I do believe our paid sick would cover this as well. Again, it's, making sure there's that understanding. The one piece though that we don't, well, and two things, I guess I'd say a few things. Maybe our paid sick can inform the work being done federally, and I'd be happy to share with you the legislation, and let you know what we have. I'm interested in diving a little deeper on the ADA because we've discussed that here before, the disability piece, and there have been some pros and cons, and I will admit I am not well versed, and so still a little confused as to, does everyone have to then, does everyone who has endometriosis, are they automatically qualified under a disability, or do you get to apply yourself? And then when we discussed this last time, I remember there being some things where it would then prohibit the amount someone could work. And maybe I'm wrong. So again, just want to learn more about that to understand, is that a path we want to take in this state, or are there more negatives than positives? I see Laura's hand, and then I'll go to Wendy. Laura, I'm sorry that I didn't get to you.
No, it's okay. I kind of want it's just to backtrack a little bit for like anything to do with like work, adding anything towards work. Is there anything that would be added? I don't know if there's any current bills or whatever you're working on, to kind of protect those of us with endometriosis, like discrimination wise against the employer and employees, because there's so much stigma about periods in general. Just, typical ones we all know, but people just because also the lack of education about endometriosis, and everybody just would be like, oh, she just has her bad period. Why is she getting all this, extra care or whatever it is? I just wonder if that would be or could be added, because I think that would be also another issue.
Anytime I go into just deep diving research on what women with endometriosis are protected on under ADA, in terms of workplace discrimination, I constantly see different things. So, because there's somebody who can clarify exactly what is covered under that, because I sometimes
think the challenge is the interpretation and understanding of it. I have another company I worked with for a while on working on endometriosis biomarker, and they had to educate FDA that endometriosis is a chronic condition, debilitating condition. FDA didn't even classify it that way. So I'm sure the courts aren't either. So they right away see someone in a wheelchair, oh yeah, disabled. They're not seeing that for endometriosis. That's the problem. It's how it's being interpreted.
Okay. Wendy?
Yeah, everything that they're saying, I don't know if we've rehashed this before, but obviously endometriosis is not identified as a disability yet. And we need to first off clarify that it can be a dynamic disability. And I think what we need to do is compare it with other conditions like diabetes. What is the criteria, the minimal criteria, till it's considered a disability? There has to be certain things in place. And I think we need to create some kind of a basic outline of these are the things that considered a dynamic disability, or just getting the name disability. And it doesn't mean everybody has endo has a disability. We have to find out what those minimal standards are. And I don't know again if whether we can look at creating a boilerplate off of everybody else's boilerplate for diabetes or rheumatoid arthritis, everything else that's already acknowledged as a disability. I think that's where we have to really start is to create the template of what is necessary to be considered a disability.
Okay, interesting. Arlie?
Okay, so yes, when we spoke about this like last year, and I just brought it back up on my phone to just like reconfirm, but for the portal for Connecticut for disability states, again, it can take 6 to 8 months on average to get approved. And, they're going to need to have a conversation with your employer about when your medical condition began. It's going to, ask if you're able to lift and move things and carry things, which for us endometriosis people, we could be totally functional one day and then the next day totally non-functional. So that's a little, and then Jillian, you refreshed my memory also with the last time that I did look this up, and I don't have specifics, but there was a cap. You were capped at how much income you could receive for disability. And it's similar to the food SNAP benefits, right? If you make too much money, you're going to lose your benefits. It's very similar with disability. So I think that's some of the trickiness between figuring this out, because I work for myself, and one of the reasons I went to work for myself and I'm able to do that as a hairstylist is I can make my own hours, and if I'm not well one day, I'm able to take that time. I'm not getting paid, but somebody that's working for a large corporation is not going to be able to do that. I have a patient right now I'm working with, and she has severe endometriosis that's affected her kidneys, and now her employer wants her to go back into the city 3 days a week, and she's fighting with them about being able to continue to work from home because she's going to need to have kidney surgery. So there's all these little loopholes with applying for disability, how long it takes for you to apply for disability and all that communication, right? And then they're going to look at your income, and they're probably going to say, well, if you make more than X, Y, and Z, you're not going to get disability.
Then here's my naivety: is disability at this point in time being determined to under disability the only work protection? Because it seems then there's two pieces, folks who need the work protection piece and people who need potentially the financial, support, and then of course both. And so if someone makes too much to qualify for disability, does that mean they can't get the job protection?
Yeah, I'll just state, going through with my mother right now with breast cancer, she doesn't qualify for any financial support from the state, even though she's completely unable to work. So I think we're going to fall into that same sort of problem, because they say, well, you made too much on paper, but she hasn't worked since February now. So literally, like Wendy said, people lose their homes over their medical debt and all these little loopholes that a large population of people fall through. And to be quite honest, as somebody who received state assistance as a single mom, I literally saw what happened when I went out and got a second job to try to make more money. I lost my heating and food assistance, and then my car got repossessed. So it's literally, we trap people in these systems, and unfortunately, those people who don't have the resources or have a job for a larger corporation are still the ones that we're not providing support for. Sorry.
No, this is helpful. Wendy?
I always have a lot to say on this conversation. So Arlene's right. Another thing that we need to look at is not just the job security, the finance security. You have a lot of professionals out there. How many people do you have, case in point, have endometriosis that work in medicine? And we all treat other people with problems. I cannot work in the clinic as a physical therapist now because of the latent effects, where I could actually make sure that I was showing up every day for work. And you can't just exactly call in and say, okay, now I have other physical therapists that have to take up the slack over and over and over again. So if you look at like I said, in the medical system, we have a lot of people with endometriosis, right? And they're now stuck. What can they do? They're trained to provide services in healthcare, and now all of a sudden that job is gone. That's what I went to school for and I'm trained for. What do I do now? There's only so many jobs out there educating future physical therapists out there or working in public health. So it's not just taking that position, that role as an income, but it's also protecting the people that are out there providing in a position that you have to consistently be there. It's not like you can make the work up because you have patients relying on you, right? So anyway, all right, that was my 2 cents on that perspective.
Who would be in our state, I guess Department of Labor? Like, who would we talk to about the disability piece? Or is there another way to secure the job protection and school? So I saw someone posted something that passed Portugal, paid menstrual leave. So we have in Connecticut, now Connecticut focus, we have the paid sick days and we have paid family leave, which does cover it. But I guess like when you are having to call in or you're late, like how do we ensure someone is protected?
Well, Jillian, I'm just going to jump in. You know, I'm Irish. I did this whole race hand thing. Anyway, isn't that like the paid sick leave that we passed? It can't be held against you, right? Because this is the pushback I'm getting again from like a lot of the municipalities and the small businesses is somebody, you know, this is the flip side of it, but this is like the benefit of it that we're looking at, right? I open at 8 o'clock. This person calls in at 10 of 8. They're not going to be here until noon because they're sick, right?
Yep.
So they can't hold it against them. There's nothing like written in that legislation that, you know, they can say, you know, you have to give me 3 hours notice, right? Our law was written so broadly that there is no, like they can just call in. They can be at work and say, I'm leaving. I'm taking the next 2 hours of sick time, you know, because of whatever, right? Like they don't have to validate it with a doctor's note, or the business can't ask for any proof or anything. So I think our paid sick leave handles all of that. Like there's, you know, they in that paid sick leave, mind you, is now we are having what are we up to? I think is it down to like the 10 employees yet? It's 10 employees and more. They have to have this, right? So I think, and it's going to be down to 1 in a couple of years, right? Everybody's going to have it. So I think we're already like I don't know what the path would be to try to make this a disability. And I don't know that I think it would be hard for just one state to have this, you know, you have to have, because think about it, federal disability, they don't have to recognize it if we just do it as one state, right? And I don't know how you go about getting something turned into something that is on the list of, like, you know, we said, which I think there could be an argument, I guess, but it's diabetes or something like that, like how you get this turned into a disability. I would assume we would have to probably start with the Department of Labor to figure that out. And how you do it, what you do. Because there's a couple of things that I heard on here that I don't know that we can mandate that a company have hybrid positions, right? I don't know that we can do that. Or that we should do that. Because think about it, every business you have to have a hybrid position. Like I don't know that we can mandate that, unless you want to pass legislation on that. But I really think we should look at what we currently have. I think our paid sick leaves are extremely generous to that. And so is our Family Medical Leave Act. Like I went when my cancer, my family medical leave was was approved within a week. There was no like long wait for us to get notification immediately and tell me exactly how much money they were going to be providing for. So I think our systems here in Connecticut run pretty well. So I'd like to see what we currently have that can be used for all of these things. And then do we need to fill in a gap someplace?
Yeah.
Well, for the federal level, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is the one that defines it. And it has to be a major life activity, that it has to be impairing a major life activity according to the EOC. So, and then DOJ also has some authority on this, but it's we're talking federal, so it sounds like Connecticut's great, but it might be federal is different.
And are you all in your advocacy federally, are you working through the Equal Opportunity Commission to try and get endometriosis added, or is that not part of the advocacy?
Well, I had suggested that, but the group did not want to do that. They wanted to do a bill because I know of another effort around a women's health issue. They were actually able to change the definition. Now, they did it in December, right before Biden left. So, you know, nowadays it might be hard to do things, but there's always regulatory ways of doing things as opposed to legislative.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Dr. Courtois?
Regulatory would be easier, wouldn't it? Rather than.
You would think, but we have a different administration now that is, you know.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the Department of Defense also could provide some help. So endometriosis is a disqualifying condition for the military service. And you can get some, I think it's partial, but I'm not sure, disability from the VA if you have a diagnosis of endometriosis and adenomyosis.
Interesting.
I did not know that. So you can be discharged for getting a diagnosis of endometriosis, or they can deny you like to be an active service member?
So for the DoD, who's actually sponsoring some research, there is some literature about being a disqualifying entry condition, or can be being discharged, but I don't exactly know all the details. I know there are a few articles, I can find them out. And about the VA, I'm not so sure what are the details, but I definitely know that we have some information in the VA and in the Department of Defense.
I'd
I
be
mean,
interested
if
to
they
see
recognize
that.
it as
If
a,
you have it, that would be
Yeah.
interesting to look at.
Yep.
I can follow up and then get that out to the group. Thank you. Shifting gears a little to the other piece that you brought up, what are the efforts with CMS to change the coding? Because that's something this group has discussed and has been a huge frustration of ours, and something that we've tried to figure out how we could do at the state level, but really it doesn't seem like we can at this point because of the CMS coding. So could you speak more to that effort?
Yeah, first we drafted a bill, and then with Liz Powell's guidance, shifted to writing a letter first. So the letter that we're currently drafting right now is the request for an establishment of distinct coding on reimbursement for excision surgery. So, like I said before, it's the same payout. So we need a different code, like have that old one for ablation, a new one for excision, and then have the reimbursement rates be higher. So the letter that we're drafting right now just has some background. We're trying to keep it down to like 1 page, but just defining excision surgery, the contract of ablation, the purpose for the proposed reform. So the first one being differential reimbursement rates of coding, the second being appropriate incentives for advanced surgical training, and the third being comprehensive post-surgical care. Then we go through the reimbursement and coding recommendations, and we just explain the complexity-based reimbursements of the surgical time, the technical complexity, and the specialized training and compared to ablation. Then the post-operative coverage. So trying to fit in like physical floor therapy or pelvic floor therapy, biologic and hormonal medications, imaging diagnostics, pain management, rehab services that are all typically not covered by insurance, or you have to meet your super high network deductible. And that's when you eventually pay your $50 copay. But until then, it's $200 or $400 a session for pelvic floor therapy. And then just the economic justification. So ending with just all like a list of statistics on why failing to distinguish excision from ablation results in an efficient and inequity in terms of the economic standpoint.
And who are you all sending the letter to?
Liz, that would be the board, the CMS board?
CMS. Yep.
Okay, awesome. Arlie, followed by Wendy. Thank you for that info.
Right. Nicole, I'm thinking as you were talking about like the ablation code, I think we really need to stress that ablation is not a treatment for endometriosis. Like that's something that this community's been fighting forever, that ablation does not treat the disease, that excision is the gold standard. I get a little concerned about the word ablation, like literally being anywhere included with the word endometriosis, because there's so many providers out there that are still doing ablation and telling patients that that's a reasonable way to treat endometriosis. But I think there's enough information out there, research that the gold standard is definitely excision. So I don't know if we can somehow include, that excision is the gold standard in a more legislative tone.
So to include it, not just saying like in the verbiage, not just saying excision needs to be a separate code, but that
I just
valued.
I totally, because it's an entirely different procedure. Absolutely. I just wanted to like make sure that was clear, that we don't want that word like to be included in the coding for excision or for endometriosis coding. Sorry.
Definitely.
Thank you. Wendy?
Hi, thank you again. Okay, this is to Nicole. So you're working on the addressing the CSMs. A couple things. We do have a couple people I would refer you to that knows this stuff very, very well. But from the perspective of the CSM and writing on exactly what Arlie just said, we have a couple things that are a concern. So we talk about ablation versus excision. We have three things in order to get excision as a separate code. One, we have to show our outcomes. There is some studies out there. They're very good studies that show that people with excision do better. They have an increased risk, increased likelihood of spontaneous fertilization if they're seeking to have a child. But there's also a variety of outcomes that show excision is better than ablation. Now, they can be controversial because there's not a lot of them, and it's not exactly something that you can do a blind study for. So the outcomes, I can get you some studies to maybe support that documentation of excision being gold standard. But that's something we do need to have. The second part would be also stating that ablation does only allow penetration within a certain depth of the tissue. We know endometriosis gets thicker than that. So that would, I think, support that boost of we have deep disease that can't be addressed by ablation. The third thing is, and Daniela's sitting there, and I hope she'll chime in too, that we don't ablate certain areas in the body where the disease is found. That should be included in there because a lot of times GYNs are going to go in there. If it's near the ureter, they don't want to ablate it because we don't want to affect the ureter. Now we have a bigger problem. And then another point would be the caustic effects of ablation is different than having clean margins when you cut and you have good healthy tissue repairing itself. The last thing would be if you're looking at an excision code, and I'm sure Daniela would agree with this, there are a lot of places in the body and they're all very different. And so removing disease off the bowel is going to be a different procedure, which is going to be a different reimbursement code for the complexity of the technique versus removing of, say, the ovary or of the diaphragm. So I don't know. I'm assuming you've already considered that for excision by the location. Okay, so those are all like the keys that I can think off the top of my head. And if you want, I can put my email address in here and
so.
helping with some of the specific things that I think would be really important for legislators to know that, well, what's the difference between the two? There's a lot of difference. But making it really concise little single statements and then just having a citation. So I'll put that in, but I don't know if Daniela has anything that she can chime in as a surgeon of, really specific details that a legislator would need to know. But anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
I think, Wendy, I think you addressed it perfectly. I wouldn't add anything. I think it's about where we excise it and how, and the location is just as important as actually excising it versus ablating it. I mean, Arlie made also a bunch of excellent points.
Beth, I see your comment. You want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I was able to get my daughter on disability. We hired an attorney who did that type of work, and she got denied one time. We went before the judge about 3 months later, and he approved it. And she's also now getting some SNAP benefits. So that maybe was a one-off, and she didn't really work too much, going previously. So that might have something to do with it as well. I don't know. The process was really smooth and really simple. It could have been due to the attorney and the judge. But I have to say, I was really pleasantly surprised at the whole process. So just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Michelle, go right ahead.
Yes, thank you. Firstly, Nicole and Liz as well, thank you for bringing this to my attention in terms of the CPT code being the same. I had no idea. And now that I think about it, it's actually making a lot of sense to me, knowing that a lot of health systems have moved away from that. And I didn't really know the reason behind that. So this really does kind of paint a bigger picture. I think my question to this, and this is maybe Dr. Luciano, I mean, someone from the provider perspective, have we noticed over the past year or so, 6 months, are we seeing effective reimbursement for these procedures as a whole? And then same thing for, pharmaceutical treatments and things like that. Are we seeing a decrease or an increase in just getting these covered as a whole? Anyone, I mean, provider or not, I'm just curious what anyone's perspective is on that.
I'm not a provider. But I work with a provider, and there are certain insurance companies that will take 8 to 9 months to reimburse the surgeon for one surgery. So that's a big problem on their end as well.
And from I mean, I know we're focused on talking more like federal and CMS. So from a CMS perspective, I mean, do we see that these are rejected? Or because I know a challenge, because we are very actively working with payers right now, ensuring that our test is designed in a way that we can hopefully have reimbursement for the test, right? But in doing that, I'm really trying to figure out, where we can help fill some of those gaps. And if so, it's the big question I get is, providers across the board will just say this is the ICD-10 code for endometriosis because the patient has pelvic pain. So they're very quick. I see Wendy smiling. Like I pulled data from Definitive to understand a very large subset of providers and how many of them were diagnosing patients with endometriosis and what the underlying causes were, how long they'd seen the patient, so on and so forth. And it was really interesting how many of these patients were deemed as having endometriosis, but really did not have a lot of supporting documentation for it. So I'm wondering if maybe that's why the payers are pushing back and saying, okay, you just put ICD-10 code, there's no, I mean, unfortunately for that patient, good and bad, there's no laparoscopic surgery to give a full diagnosis.
It's a battle. It's a really big battle. I mean, as a patient, I've fought for all 5 of my surgeries, and then also medication on top of that had been covered by one insurance, and then I switched insurances, and then the next insurance is like, oh, we don't care, you've been on this for a year and a half, we're not covering it. So I know providers that have to hire attorneys to essentially battle for them so that they can get paid. And doctors that then have to constantly do, peer-to-peers with the insurance company and try to explain to somebody who's never even been a gynecologist what exactly it is that they need to do for a patient who may be 15 or 16 and doesn't have that big health binder of all of the things. It's a huge struggle, and then the burden falls on the family because they're like, well, my daughter needs surgery and I can't fight this for 6 months or a year. So, I can't see her suffer anymore. I'm gonna pay it. I mean, essentially that's what they want you to do. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there, and that is exactly what I've seen as a patient and what exactly I've heard from providers that they're dealing with. And then providers are not working with certain insurance companies. Like Cigna is the worst. Like, nobody wants to work with Cigna. You're lucky if you have an insurance policy under Anthem or Aetna, but there are certain insurance companies that these surgeons know will take that 8 or 9 months and will take paying a surgeon all these hours of time to deal with it. So it's a huge issue.
Why do they end up, so when you've had to fight, why do they end up covering it differently than just the ablation since the code is the same?
To be honest, Jillian, I think it's really comes down to who you get on the phone the first time. I think it comes down to how much you've advocated or educated yourself as a patient, because there's certain words that need to be, there's certain language that needs to be used, just like in legislation. I think, I was able to get my surgeries covered because I had 24 years it took to be diagnosed properly. So I had a stack. But yeah, I think it has to do with the language. I think it has to do with certain codes that have been included. I don't know. It took a lot of fighting. It took a lot of conversations, and it took getting the insurance company to assign me an advocate within the insurance company. And then once you get assigned that person, you're building a case with them essentially. And it took the surgeon doing multiple peer-to-peers. And then I was able to get my last surgery covered within network because I had a post-operative report that had that surgeon's name on it from like 6 years prior. So it's all like little like specifics, but at the end of the day, whoever's answering the phone at the insurance company is typing in whatever they're typing in about that phone call, and what you said is going to direct you to either like somebody who's going to be super helpful, or it's going to direct you to somebody that might not be and might add to your process and your fight and your battle. And unfortunately, there are people that don't get the privilege that I got in terms of fighting and getting it covered, and they give up, or they turn to somebody who's just going to do, mostly ablation, will tell them they can do excision and wreak more havoc and destroy their body. And that did happen to me. So I've been on both ends of the spectrum.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's interesting because, I work with other disease states, specifically around oncology and hereditary cancer and things like that. And we've seen the education get better and better, and the coverage has gotten, continue to get better, especially from a CMS perspective, right? and even U.S. Preventative Task Force and things like that. But with endometriosis specifically, and some of these other very similar conditions, we've moved backwards, it feels like. And that's why I was curious if anyone on the phone could say, actually, I've seen some improvement here, but it doesn't sound like that's the case.
We're making improvements in certain areas of women's health. I mean, we all are seeing this menopause movement, which, wonderful. And Heather is not on this call because it's her birthday, and I hope she's doing something wonderful for herself. But she would say the exact same thing. In fact, she'd sound way better and smarter. Because that's Heather, and she's been fighting for over 30 years. But 100%, there is something about this disease in particular that is more political than any other women's health disease or a person's disease. I don't know why, but it does seem like we just continue to slide back.
Wendy?
Well, endometriosis is a constant influx to the healthcare system. It's right. So, I mean, that's part of, I think, what's going on is that you're always going to see women. They're going to keep coming back, keep coming back. So, hey, it's secured income. Anyway, that's just my side opinion. Don't tell me I'm going to lose it here. Okay. We were talking about reimbursement. What I found is, so I wrote an appeal to my insurer 4 months after my own surgery because I was so sick beforehand. We just paid out of pocket. We took out for our retirement, whatever, and just got it done. And then about 4 months later, I was starting to feel better. So I started writing my letters. And what I found was the way that I got appealed and got accepted, and I have written numerous letters for multiple people. Most of the people that I've written letters for that have gotten approval is because their endometriosis is the atypical. So here's the problem is that they've been using ablation and they've been addressing reproductive disease. But when I've submitted letters for bowel disease, diaphragm, lung disease, all of the unusual places, they get approved because you have to explain that a GYN can't approach the disease in these areas. Nobody else has addressed the disease in no other specialist truly. And so that's been really helpful. But every time I've written a letter, I've had to put so many citations in, so much research about the disease in the areas, not about the surgical technique to actually excise it, because they don't believe the disease exists in all these areas. So that as you're going forward of thinking about that, how do we get the insurances on board? We need to obviously educate them. It's a reproductive disease, not a menstrual disease, but it's far more than that. And by presenting it to the insurers that they understand that look, endometriosis, you think it's just a gynecological disease. It affects the ureters. It's found on kidneys. It's found on adrenal glands. It's found on the diaphragm. It's found on the large intestine, the bladder. So they need to understand it's more than that. That's why a little divvy. That's why I have extra pelvic not rare. But I think going forward, when you push the insurance companies, you have to put it set that standard of saying, look, someone's not going to have an ovary or it's on the external of the uterus. It's going to involve all these other organs. And you can't have a surgeon that goes in there that doesn't know, one, they can't ablate these other organs, and two, they're not allowed to do surgery on those organs, and you don't leave the disease there, which is what's happening. So that was just my perspective of being a patient, having to get it appealed. And I know the medical language because I'm a medical person, but most people don't. And so that's why I've had people come to me and say, will you help me with my letter? It's because I can talk the talk. And I think that scares them, honestly. Okay, they know what they're talking about, right? They can't dismiss it. And so presenting their language and having the evidence. But we know the average person out there can't do that. So I think hitting those highlights are really important. Stressing to them that it's not just found on the ovaries, it's not just found on the pelvic sidewalls, right? It's affects all these organs, and that a GYN who isn't an endo person isn't equipped for that, and they don't have the technique to treat the disease on those organs. You can't ablate it on a ureter or around a ureter, right? And you don't leave it there because you do, and it progresses. Well, next thing you know, the person's going to lose a kidney. So I think it's really driving that home about the devastating potential of the disease is always there if you're leaving it behind and you're not treating it properly. Anyway, my 2 cents.
No, you're right. And look, sorry, I don't want to take over, but I'm I'm in the middle of trying to collect as much data as possible, right? And there's just no solid white papers, right? Especially for infertility. And it's this has been the most or like just unbelievable journey for me being, and I've been obviously focused on this field for the last 2 years in the development of this test, but I cannot find, I mean, I get the insurance companies will like prove to me, show me 1,000 patients that have had their, ureter affected. Show me this, show me that. And it's like, it's really hard to find this stuff.
So that's where we've run into the problem with, we had a group of us that went to the World Health Organization. I pointed it out to the president of the AAGL. There is no codes for somebody to document the ureter, document the bladder. You still can go into the ICD-10s with the latest revisions. So everybody is saying it's rare because nobody's been tracking it. Nobody even knew what it looked like, right? So that's where we went to the World Health Organization. We pitched an appeal to them, and we had women from all over the world get on board with this. We presented it in this way. I pointed out, so Ted Lee, I guess he did some more with the codes. He updated some of them. There's still stuff missing. But now you're going to have a 10-year gap before you actually have legitimate data. So that's one of the problems. The second one is that people aren't recognizing the disease, right? So we have undiagnosed, or we have disease in places that aren't getting documented because they're not getting surgical care, or the surgeons see it. So you're always going to have an underdiagnosis of that prevalence. But I mean, I had thought in my nonprofit, I don't have the money. I would love to set up a banking of people. I mean, if you go into my groups, and you will see how many people like start flooding in. That's why I created the nonprofit Extra Pelvic Not Rare. They estimate it's about 20% of people have disease outside of the reproductive system. That is the gross estimate. And I think it's significantly higher, but hey, that's just my opinion. And I just happen to be in that niche. But I think the more we start to push that I think that's really important, because I don't know. Is there anybody here who has endo that has disease other than on the reproductive organs? Raise your hand, right? Yeah. I mean, it's incredible how many people do, but they're in places that aren't recognized. And the codes are set up. Now we're getting more, but they're set up for other. So it's always been 1080, whatever it is, the code. I usually have it on the top of my head, but everything would go under other. That's how everything was documented for the longest time, other. And so you didn't know where all these other places were. I mean, it's stupid. Anyway, I'm off my box now.
Well, I appreciate everyone. This is a great conversation, and this has been super helpful. I am realizing we need to move ahead because we want to hear from EndoRise. So I am making a note, though, because I'm thinking in the future, maybe a conversation, and this actually I think goes nicely into EndoRise, is there a way to train or provide medical providers with like these specific wording that is needed that would go into someone's, case, so that when they're trying to get the excision surgery, everyone has the same language to be able to use until, and thank you, Nicole. And I know Liz had to jump off for pushing the coding issue. And I know there's many people in this virtual space and not here today who've been pushing this for a while. So please do keep us posted on that, and let us know if we can be helpful, because that is a huge frustration. So next on and thank you so much for being here in your presentation and the work you're doing. So I had two conversations, but I'm going to push those. Well, actually, I'm going to ask you guys, if you don't mind following up, and Brianne, if you don't mind, we'll send out an email follow-up to this meeting. The conversation on who do we want to present, what to review in terms of pediatrics in schools and sex education. So what I want to do at our next meeting is have a conversation on what trainings are already available in schools for nurses, for parents, and where we can direct people, because a lot of us are interested in this early education piece. And so just want to brainstorm who are the entities we need to hear from, so we can have a full conversation at the next meeting on what is available. So if you don't mind doing that via email, just shooting like, hey, you're going to want so-and-so to present, you're going to want this group, or at least just pulling together those materials so we can have a full discussion, that'd be great. And then I'm going to bump the conversation on March and planning for Endometriosis Awareness Month to our next meeting, because I want to give time to EndoRise. So I'm going to turn it over to the team.
Okay, I will share my slides. 1 second. Do you see my PowerPoint or no?
We are seeing your emails.
Okay,
Which I don't think you want to share with us.
One moment.
Okay.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So I am excited to share some recent events that we have coming up for our Endorise program. So in the fall, we're hosting our 2025 Endorise Fall Forum. This event will bring together researchers, clinicians, and patient advocates, so some of the key stakeholders in endometriosis. In December of this year, this will be a half-day event that's open to the public. The registration is free. We are currently working on the registration link that we'll be sharing with the endometriosis work group in the coming week. This will be held at the Jackson Laboratory here in Farmington. Like I said, meant open to the public. And we will also be having a tour of Endorise and Jax as a bonus. So sign up is required with limited availability. So the registration does open. Everyone's welcome to come to Jax after 8:30 a.m. where sign in to the event was possible and the sign up for the tour will be available. So this really is a really great event that we're so excited because we have secured some great speakers and panelists for this event. Of course, we have our very own Heather Gridon, who's going to be moderating some of the panels and be part of those discussions. We have Dr. Stacy Mismer. She's the epidemiologist that's has been studying researching researching endometriosis for a really long time and the risk factors associated with endometriosis. We have Dr. Sechkin. He's the co-founder of EndoFound and a clinician. We also have Dr. Frederick Rao. He is part of he's the director of the Division of Gynecology at the Connecticut Children's Medical Center. So really bringing a perspective from the of a clinician that treats the younger populations that suffer from endometriosis. And we also have Dr. Katie Burns. She's a longtime researcher in endometriosis as well. And we all have some ongoing confirmation of additional speakers and panelists. So it's going to be an open dialogue with some great presentations, fireside chats, and panels that everyone will be, we're inviting everyone to attend either virtually or by in person. So we look forward to seeing you guys there. We do just want to highlight Dr. Burns' recent science feature. There was a great piece that just came out this past month, probing the pain. So she's studying the immune system and endometriosis and how the key difference in the immune response of endometriosis patients versus healthy or individuals that don't have endometriosis. So that's I will drop the link to her article in the chat. But some of the key things that highlights endometriosis in this article is the severity of the prevalence of endometriosis compared to some of the other diseases and the funding that goes into some of these other diseases versus endometriosis. For example, breast cancer 3% has a prevalence of about 3% of affecting an individual, but receives a lot more funding than endometriosis, even though endometriosis has about a 10% or more prevalent rate within a woman. So that's kind of a great highlight from the article. Another really great piece, important highlight of the article is that Dr. Burns has been studying the menstrual effluent. So looking at the components that exist within the menstrual effluent, and she's identified the neutrophils, which are a type of white blood cell involved in the immune system, has very distinct differences with patients with endometriosis versus people without, which can hopefully be used down the line as a non-invasive diagnostic tool. So looking at the menstrual effluent as opposed to, confirmation by laparoscopic surgery. So she will be also giving a great talk here for presenting some of her work during the forum. So we really look forward to having all of you attend. There are sponsorship opportunities for the event available. So if you know of any companies or anyone that's interested in sponsoring the event, we'll be happy to share some more information when we send out the invite to the event with the flyers. Just a quick funding update. We were able to allocate the funds from the state of Connecticut in the UConn Health budget for the biorepository. So that is great news. And then last but not least, we're partnering with UConn Huskies to host some Endorise booths and tables at their upcoming volleyball and soccer games. So October 18th, which is a Saturday, come out with your family, cheer on the Huskies, and help support Endorise at the event. And that's pretty much it. Very brief today. So thank you all for this opportunity to share.
Great, thank you. Any questions from folks for Endorise? I love all the fall. That sounds like a fantastic event. So thank you. That's wonderful.
May I share just one quick thing? I just emailed Heather Jadone, and if you guys didn't see it in the chat, she just wanted to say thank you so much for the shout out. And she really wanted to be here. So I think she's working instead of celebrating her birthday, but she has something she couldn't get out of and misses everyone, but she really appreciates the acknowledgement. So if you didn't see it in the chain, I wanted to make sure you all heard it.
Yeah.
I know she's so important to this group.
Thank you so much. Wonderful.
I wanted to just give a shout out to Jaslina. I had been trying to connect with her. My intern and I had put together a nutrition guide, and so Jaslina, we're still trying to connect with you. I don't know if she can hear.
Yes, I can hear. I sent an email back trying to schedule a meeting, but happy to follow up with you. Yeah.
So we will definitely follow up because I noticed there's nothing on the website for nutrition guidance, which can be just so particularly empowering to patients.
Yes, of course. I'm happy to reply
Absolutely.
again. But yes,
okay.
that'll be great.
I just wanted you to know that we didn't forget about it.
Very good.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for the very rich dialogue today and conversation. Again, as a reminder, we will send an email asking for your input and suggestions so we can have a robust conversation about educational opportunities available at our next meeting. And I want to let folks know, we usually meet the second Monday, but that is Columbus Day / Indigenous Peoples Day. And in the state of Connecticut, that is a day off. So we will be meeting on the 20th of October at 1 p.m. So if folks could just hold that date in their calendar. Any final? Yes.
Can I pop in and share? Sorry, everyone, just not to take too much more of everyone's time, but I put in 3 DEMIS events coming up that everyone is welcome to attend. We do have one this Friday, which is our trauma conference, which Representative Gilchrist will be doing the opening remarks for. So we're really excited about that, and a couple of other ones coming up as well. So left all the details in the chat as well as registration links. So not sure if that could also be circulated afterwards, but please, everyone's welcome to attend. It's going to be really fantastic days. So, yeah.
Yes, we can certainly do that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. So great to see you. Enjoy this beautiful weather.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Great meeting. Truly amazing.